with us? Yay, good. um, Let me share my screen. Make sure I'm sharing the right one. Okay, there we go. How are you doing? Are you able to see?
Not the screen.
Not the
Not
screen.
yet.
Not yet. Okay, let's give it a minute to catch up, maybe.
There we go.
Okay.
Well,
I will.
it's still rendering.
Oh, okay. So, um, the college system was the one that was able to get their information in first. So I'm going to scroll down to the college system so you can take a look at what their responses. There you go. Hopefully you're seeing the college responses right now as a percentage. And I think it was actually very interesting to see. I thought it was interesting that their disability services was one of the highest um, scores that they had because sometimes you have to come on campus to let them know that you're disabled. So, but apparently they have already navigated that challenge for the most part.
Hmm.
I also think tech support. I think as you move to Canvas and some of those tools, it's getting easier. You have 24-hour help numbers. Um, and then,
Vicky, I'm not seeing your
you're not
screen
still
share.
not seeing it. Okay,
I don't know if anybody else is.
let me try a different approach.
No, I'm not seeing it either, Robert. I mean, I have it on my screen, but I opened up the file.
It says,
I have a little icon that says hide stage. Now it says loading.
Yeah, mine says loading.
oh, okay, there. Oh,
No,
no,
I
you're
think
not.
it, Robert, are you seeing it? Because I know I'm
Nope.
not.
No, now it's back to hide stage.
Wow, interesting. Okay, let me see what it's definitely. Let me go share desktop. I'm going to try sharing the whole desktop. Yeah, it should be connected.
Loading.
Something's loading. Okay, that's good. Don't move fast, in other words.
I think it tries to open up another window and can't. Because that usually goes
Failed.
to, yeah, it failed again.
Wow. Okay. Trying to see what.
Vicky, is it telling you that it was successful?
Well, if I go to share window, a little thing pops up and says stop sharing once I share. Types, alternative. This should be the document. Let me share again. People will be able, and I say okay. It says connecting. All right. Try what?
No, it failed out again.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully it's
I
flat.
mean, I have your document open anyway. You send it to
Yeah,
the
and I've got a
email.
copy here.
Okay, so I'm looking at the percentage graph of um, yeah. Did I close it? Where is it? Oh, there. Type scorecard report. There we go. All right, I'm looking at the percentage of the college. I thought it was
Mhm.
interesting they were struggling with veterans, career services. They're actually even struggling with admissions and financial aid.
Makes sense.
So they're not even really focusing on how to bring students online into their colleges. Is is kind of the message I see there. But then when you go to the universities, and I actually attribute the higher scores by the universities to our DL fee. We have more resources. We're able to charge more for our DL fee, so you're seeing that reflected in the higher scores that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you can see where, again, we do really well with the disabled services and the tech support, so that's similar. But you can see admissions, we're doing a much better job. Admissions, financial aid, pre-enrollment, those activities we're doing very well with. So getting them in at the university level online appears to be easier, but you see the drop in the post-enrollment services.
Mm-hmm. It's all relative, though,
It is.
because our post-enrollment service is a big, huge category,
Yes. So did you
and
get a chance
that's
to look at it, Mario, and look at which ones were?
Each one, I started doing it.
Yeah, we're starting to pull that one apart, and we don't not have that data quite yet. And to see which services would be the best. Does anybody else see anything there that? I thought career counseling was really good too, if you look at that as well. Doing really good with our career counseling, pre-advising, financial aid.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what we want to try to figure out from here is, are there recommendations that we can make?
So Victoria, I'm, and I apologize, I'm a little bit behind here, but I'm looking at the graphs, and then I see the last two, which is the score versus the maximum possible score.
Yes.
So
That's just the raw numbers that led to these percentage ranks,
okay.
is what I saw, because I drew a correlation, 87 out of 100 and 84 out of 100 translated directly to 87 and 84%.
Gotcha.
Correct. Right. So that's just so you can kind of begin to see the spread. And we did not see any true patterns across the system. I would say, just by looking at the raw data that we looked at, I mean, obviously some institutions were doing better in some services and less in others. So, it's kind of scattered depending on, I think, what that institution valued.
Let me review for a second. Vicky, is our charge include making recommendations?
Well, that's a good question. What our charge was. Let me pull up a PowerPoint that has our charge on it. I don't know that PowerPoint launched.
This is a really good summary you did, and I was naively thinking maybe our work was done.
Well, we have 2 points that are going to come up. I'm not getting the one of them is the what we want to say to, we can summarize the results for the steering committee, and then if there, that's typically, do you have any recommendations? We can add that to this. I don't want to expand too large, extensively on that because I'm a little worried that if we put lots of recommendations in, we'll be charged with.
Yeah. Well, if they're looking for some actionable items, we might highlight some outliers, particular institution outliers that could use some focus, is what I thought. Because it's sort of hard to make a recommendation based on the aggregate group of institutions.
Correct. I think what we might be able to do is what they said to the what they did with the technology scorecard is that if you as an institution scored low in one of the areas, that you might want to put a plan of action together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for the all we are supposed to do is ensure the universities use a quality scorecard or a similar process to confirm that online students, including online students with disabilities, have access to services.
What was the key word there? Ensure?
Yeah.
Assure? Ensure that it does?
Sure.
That's a heavy charge.
It is. Nancy, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so when we developed the scorecards, it was with two items in mind. One was so that each institution could use it to improve its own services. So it's like an internal management tool. And then the other part of that was that we could look at it as a system and see if there were any particular areas that we needed to address as a system. You know, are there any of these areas whose scores are low enough that we need to say, well, how should we as a system address this? You know, do we need workshops? You know, it's something that Cindy had mentioned earlier. But the part in terms of the institution's use of it as an internal management tool, we didn't want to publish the scores by institution because we wanted to be sure that the institutions were being very honest in their own self-assessments and use this as a way to improve their own services. So we didn't want to make it look as though some institutions weren't as good as other institutions, you know. So we wanted to have the scores published at the system level, but let institutions see their own scores in order to improve them. So you could, as a recommendation, recommend that institutions that that scored low on particular areas, that they focus on developing plans of improvement on those areas without naming names as to who isn't doing really well in particular areas. But the concept would be we want institutions to improve in whatever areas that they're low in.
Right. So I think I'm wondering if this graph would be good, and then that we have with the percentages, but then maybe we need to parse out possibly the post-enrollment services a little better just to see what might be going on or what services might be in that category that we need to see if there's any patterns there. My thought was to then provide each university with their own chart where they could see the average score, the total possible, the average score, and their score.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't sure who to send it to.
I think that it should go to the provost. The people who filled out your scorecards were primarily your student services vice presidents or your distance learning leaders. I would think that both of those folks would want to see the scores at their own institutions. I mean, what do you guys think? would it make sense for those two, the VP of Student Services and the distance learning leader, and of course the provost at the institution?
Sounds fair to me. The respondents should definitely be included.
Okay, yeah, that would
Not,
be
not,
good.
not maybe not the designees, but our primary contacts, the student service leaders.
And then would that go out through you, Nancy?
Probably, I think that we would need to run that by the steering committee first and see if they had any other ideas about how it should be distributed.
All right, so that might be one of our suggestions.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I kind of like the idea of generating some interest. I was at OLC last week, and I think there could be more interest generated around student support services for distance learning leaders or students. I don't know that that's been done well. I don't know if workshops would be the best. I don't know, how do you guys feel? Would you want to join maybe Top Kit? We do something with Top Kit at the same time they meet.
Vicki, this is Cindy. We also have that commitment to do a professional development workshop every year with FLBC for distance learning leaders, and one of those could be focused on student service support, because I sort of feel like even though the SUS scored high, once again, I'm not sure how they answered the question, because I think at the University of South Florida, our online students are just part of the entire student body, and we don't have specific services. And I'd like to see a workshop, because I think we could develop some services specifically for online students that I feel are going to have different needs.
I'm not even sure here's kind of one of my thoughts as I was looking at this, and I was wondering what you might think about this, Nancy, too, you and Cindy, is what if we put something together that was a survey to distance learning students across the system to see what services they might be interested in having or they are not getting right now?
Well, I can tell you that when we did a survey for learning management systems a couple of years ago, we did get some pushback from some of the institutions about surveying students, and at that time we were also surveying faculty. They did it to different extents, but we did have some unhappy data administrators for having to administer those type of surveys. They felt that if they were doing a system-wide survey for us, then it would mean that students and faculty would be less likely to respond to other surveys that the institution wanted them to focus on.
Yeah, I just kind of worried that we put in services that maybe they aren't interested in, or maybe they are interested in. I don't know. That was one of our questions. I thought about surveying our students here, but that would just be a sample of FAU students.
You could possibly ask for volunteers for that, Vicki, to see if there'd be various institutions, or here I could do a focus group of a certain number of fully online students. That would be another way of doing it.
Yeah, that would be too. Because I'd hate for us to be investing efforts in something that they may not be interested in doing. This was definitely us thinking about what we thought they would want. Okay. What about the rest of the team here? What do you think of those suggestions?
I think the feedback to provide institutional response in comparison with the averages, the system aggregate would be real helpful.
Okay.
Yeah,
As
I
as
like
a
the idea of using one of our annual professional development days in conjunction with an FLVC meeting to address this, and um, maybe with me being up next for the distance learning chair, we can arrange that for, we should have a meeting late July, early August, and then another meeting late October, early November time frame. So we could possibly do it one of those two meetings.
I think we could possibly talk about best practices and how to implement the scorecard for sure.
I think we could almost do a similar format to what we did for accessibility, because that was a great format that they put on, where had institutions giving some best practices.
Mm-hmm.
We heard from some students. We had some legal advice. All those types of things could be applied to this, I would think.
Yeah, I really like that too, because I think that, like I know the University of Florida, for instance, has a really good model for online students as it refers to counseling. So we might be able to pick up, points or best practices from some of our colleagues around the state.
Yeah, I think so too. I like that. Well, and I don't know if what Josh and I just did for OLC, I think would be good too, where we walked everyone through how to use the scorecard, how to think about their students, and they had good discussion about around the tables about these issues too. So maybe we can replicate some of that. Okay, that sounds good. That's what we'll do. We'll keep it very top level, and I'll send out what our recommendations, and we'll break down this post enrollment section a little more for you as we move forward.
I just want to say before we get off the call that I'm really impressed with everything your group has done. I think it's an incredible effort, and I really appreciate all that everyone's done.
I did have a very good group. They were very good. So let me think. Oh, and then FLVC. I think that one of the things that we want to do with FLVC is we're going to take and look at I want to have this data really broken down for that group when we meet online, because I think if we take a good look at what we're doing, I want to make sure that student support services is working towards something positive that can be used across the system. And I'd like for it to be based on the data that we've gathered. So I'm going to work on that with that particular group. And is there anyone in this group who might be interested in being a part of the FLVC group? Let me know, and we can add you to that group, because we can expand that group. But I didn't know who wanted to be involved in that.
When you say FLVC, who are your contacts there?
That would be Joseph. I don't know how you pronounce his last name. Cindy, how do you pronounce his last name?
Regelme, right, Nancy?
Yes, I think that's close.
Regelme. Okay, I'm gonna have to learn that one. And then Meredith and myself, Melody and myself are supposed to co-lead that group.
Okay, I guess I'm a little confused. You're not talking about the Florida Virtual Campus, right?
Yes, I am.
In Tallahassee.
No, they're at West Florida now.
Right, UWF. That's me.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
it's one of our work groups. We've broken into 7 or 8 different work groups. So the student services work group will be just one, and hopefully we'll be working on more projects than just this project.
yeah, but I guess I know Joseph from FIU, right? That's what you're talking about, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So, but I sort of meant who from FLVC is on that group.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I
Okay, 'cause
don't
I think
know
that's
that we have an FLVC staff member on this group yet. It's just institutional representatives so far, I believe.
okay.
It would be good if we had someone.
Well, yeah, I was going to say if I guess I could sort of serve that role. Mike Diekman has asked me to make sure and get much more involved. So I guess I mean I work at FLVC. I'm the director of enterprise applications now, so
Okay.
I can serve that role if you guys if that would be okay with you guys.
From our last executive committee call, I know that Joseph's the current chair, and it was his hope, I believe, that there be a FLVC staff member involved in each group to help facilitate.
Okay, good.
I that was my understanding from the meeting we had online.
Okay.
Okay. Um, we're working towards the agreement with the scorecard and LOC. So I wanted to make sure everyone understood how that would unfold. LOC is going to put the scorecard out for free. That you don't even have to have a membership in order to access the scorecard. And then the guidebook will also be available for free through LOC, and only if you want to download it will you have to pay for a book. LOC is the Online Learning Consortium. Oh, am I saying L? Oh, I'm saying L. I'm sorry, OLC. I'm dyslexic, so I switched the letters around. So then we will be launching that at their spring conference officially, and then they're going to provide services in consultation with that as well. What happened is Josh and myself are going to control, and we put in place that we would control the people who would be providing consultation services, so it couldn't just be anyone. And we recommended that our work group, who's been working with the scorecard from the very beginning, would be the group that would be involved with that. And then it would be the people who would do the consultating. And then we also have made sure that we control all rights to any modifications or changes to the scorecard. So that way we can keep Florida really involved in managing that scorecard. Updates on the technology access paper is that our recommendations that we put together did get submitted to Bob at the I'm going to say this wrong, at HECC, and he's was putting together a presentation for the legislature and the governor, but I'm not sure what happened after that. Nancy, do you have any updates?
Yes, Ed Moore, who is actually a member of the Higher Ed Coordinating Committee and is president of ICUF, presented the draft report at the last Higher Ed Coordinating Committee meeting. There was a good bit of discussion, and so they were going to go back and make some edits and make some technical corrections to it and discuss it at their next meeting.
Oh.
And I think at the next meeting that they plan to finalize that report.
Oh, good. Okay. So we've had a little bit of impact. Let's see what happens as it moves forward. And then I sent you some accelerated models. This is a partnership that we're supposed to be working with on with the technical support group, and this was some models that I was able to find around access or accelerated models. I don't know, and I'm hoping you can give me some feedback. Is this comprehensive? Did I miss a model? Agree, disagree? Do I need to make some changes? Do you have that document in front of you? Yay. Good. So the models that I found was awarding prior credit, compressing programs and they had several different starts, multiple starts, intercessions. There was some discussion about rolling admissions with start dates, and then competency-based education. And I actually think that if we looked around the system, we would probably find a university or college probably using these models. I don't feel like there was nowhere where you could go to and find a comprehensive set. And remember, this is supposed to be a kind of a combination between ourselves and Joseph's group, and then we're supposed to provide recommendations for student services, and they're supposed to provide suggestions about technical needs. So I kind of was trying to identify the disadvantages so we could kind of work through those. I don't know, is Cindy still online with us, or did she drop? Right.
I got the call.
Yeah, do you want to try calling her back and see?
Is that the number now?
Yeah.
Speaker.
Vicky, sorry.
That's all right. We're looking at the accelerated models right now.
Okay.
And I was just trying to get some feedback if these models covered the different ones. Was it comprehensive enough? Did I miss something? I tried to find things I could cite.
Right. Yeah. Hold on, I have to look at it. I mean, we do a May semester and a winter semester.
Yeah, so I put that under compressed, and then and I put intercessions.
Uh-huh.
Kind of like that as the description. I thought that was the common term for it, as close as I could tell.
Yep. That data, there's a group out there called the National Association of Summer Sessions, or North American Association of Summer Sessions. They have a lot on the compressed or mini-mesters, but it sounds like you have most of them identified.
Yeah, Vicki, I agree that you're probably going to find more than one institution around the state that's doing each of these. And I wonder if a next step might be to identify some of those and see if we can gather some anecdotal challenges that are faced by those students. Because I mean, your disadvantages are probably all right on, but I'm not sure if some of them, I think we might need a little bit more before we get into suggestions and recommendations for how to address those things.
Okay. Do we have some suggestions I know, University of South Florida is doing the intercession, so maybe Cindy, if you could find someone to help us with that.
Sure. I mean, I have a gentleman in my office. His name's Owen Hooper, and he's on the research committee for that group. I just noted he could collect a lot of information for you and look at that.
Okay. And how do you spell his name?
It's Owen and then Hooper, Hooper.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then rolling admissions, do we know of a group that might be trying to do that? I think it's one of the more challenging ones because they can just enroll into classes. To me, that kind of sounded more like a private might be doing that.
Yeah, I know that Embry-Riddle doesn't. I don't know of a public institution, though.
I wonder if they could give us some ideas. Okay. Do you know of anybody over at Embry-Riddle I could contact?
No, but Tom Cavanaugh does.
Oh, okay. I'll talk to Tom.
I'll ask him.
Okay, that'd be good.
All right.
Competency-based, I think that would be West Florida. Or is there a better college maybe that's doing that? Do we know of one of the colleges?
I'm wondering if we could just put these up in a quick Survey Monkey and send them out to our FLVC listserv with just a brief explanation for why we're doing it, and just say, please mark any of these that you'd be willing to share your experiences with.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And then we can, even if we only get a 50% response rate or something, we should get enough to hit all of them and get a little bit of information.
Or follow-up conversations with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, maybe with the student, I think what we're concerned about is student services and the technical. Okay. That works. I like that idea. That'll get us some information fast. Okay. All right.
Vicki, I had one other comment.
Sure.
The portfolio assessment sort of caught my eye, and I see that under both awarding prior credit, but it's more a competency-based tactic, isn't it?
I had that. I added that to both of them because I found references to the portfolio based with the awarding of the prior credit as well, because the portfolio is the place where you can gather that credit and give the. It's kind of like. From what I could tell, different universities or different colleges were doing different approaches. So it could be that you've broken down every credit into one credit, and then you're uploading artifacts for each credit, equivalent credit. And then based on the prior credit, you could get some award.
Yeah, the competency-based models I've really looked into, they weren't looking so much at a portfolio, they were looking at your performance on the front end of the course, or the, whatever chunk, however they were defining that, and then you would either prove competency through some sort of performance or not, and then they would assign whatever work that you needed to do. And I think some institutions use a model of both, where they do the portfolio, award credit for prior knowledge, and then whatever work you have left, they move you into the competency model, where you go through whatever you need to go through.
I like that distinction, Josh. The portfolio is more like a awarding credit for work, and competency is demonstrating knowledge. So maybe portfolio-based evaluations are more strictly confined to prior awarding credit for prior work.
You're right, and it could be that that's why it's in both places, is because sometimes, depending on the competency model, it might be a mixture of the two. So one may be a pre-test and a post-test, or maybe that you can demonstrate you're doing, you did a market analysis for your workplace and you upload that analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, did you address adaptive under competency?
No, I did not.
That might be something to include there because it's, don't know if it should be its own category, but it's dependent upon competency demonstration. Knowledge of prerequisites or knowledge of fundamentals. It's recognizing that competency and then moving the student forward on an accelerated basis. So they can bypass portions of course components.
Okay, I get how you wanted to do that. Okay. So do you want me to pull the portfolio out of the competency base then?
Yeah, and I would replace it with adaptive.
That sounds like a good plan. Okay.
Adaptive technologies or adaptive tactics.
And that I like the way you've talked about that. It should clarify the difference, performance versus prior. Okay. Well, that's what I have for the good of the cause. Does anybody else have anything that we should be focusing on?
Vicki, I've got a question. This is Nancy.
Okay.
What about distribution of your report to the Florida college system? We had talked about the best way to distribute it to the university system, and I'm glad that Josh is still on. I know the college system has a Council of Presidents Distance Learning Committee. And I'm thinking that Melanie Jackson may be staffing that group. And Josh, you may know whether she's the staff or not, but I'm wondering about whether we should send her the report and ask her to share it with the chair of that Council of Presidents Committee, as appropriate. Or what do you think, Josh?
Dr. Cedar had Sid Beitler at, now I'm blanking on
West Palm Beach.
Palm Beach, yep. He had Sid Beitler send out the scorecard originally, so I would think Sid would probably be a good person to send it back through.
That's a good idea. It just seems that this has some really useful information to the colleges and that system as well as in ours. And so I think that they would want to see the results.
Yeah, we would want to see them. And the raw data, just raw averages, was sent out, but there was no sort of analysis with it. It was just kind of an average across the system for each tactic was sent out to us several months ago. So any kind of analysis that we can see would be helpful.
So, yeah, we could maybe go ahead and we have the raw data as well, so we could go pull together college by college report similar to what we're doing with university support. I think it would be nice to talk to the Council of Presidents to see if they want that.
Yes, I would do that before going to additional work of pulling all that together by institution.
Yeah.
And it is Dr. Cedar that's been handling that group. It was Dr. Guevara at Florida Keys, but for obvious reasons, he's kind of stepped back from it.
And which college is he from? You know?
you would ask me that. I want to say Lake Sumter, but I'll look it up and send you
Okay.
a side message and just to make sure I've got it right, Victoria.
Yeah, I mean, I could reach out directly to them as well,
Mhm.
or Nancy, if you think that's appropriate, instead of maybe Melanie Jackson.
Um, I think that we would need to have a conversation with Melanie first, if
Okay.
she's the one that's staffing that, just to bring her up to date and get her thoughts and tell her what we were thinking about doing.
Okay.
So you may want to reach out to her first for a
Okay.
conversation.
Well, she's on my committee with the student work group, so
Oh, good.
yeah.
Yeah, and Dr. Sudor is at Lake Sumter State College.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I like that idea, so we can share what's going on. I have heard positive things from the colleges and the universities about the use of the scorecard. They've really felt it helped their institution think about student support services. So that was a goal of the scorecard. So I think we accomplished that. And I know it had a huge difference here at FAU, made a difference for us in our conversations. And I'm actually pretty excited because our student support services actually developed a model for how we could support them better. So that was really good. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me on a Monday right before lunch, and appreciate your time. And we're doing some very good work here. It's great to be able to be sharing that work on your behalf nationally. So thank you.
Thank you, Vicki.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. You have a good day.
Thanks.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.